My grandson slammed the door in front of me when I wouldn't let him leave with my Social Security check. The edge of the door hit my shin, a bright, dull pain that made my head spin. He said he was being pressured by his debt, that he'd pay me back on Friday. "Give me the card, Grandma." "Yeah," he said, breathing hard. One hand gripped the strap of my purse, the other the handle as if he were going to try again. He was taller than my father now. His face was the same one I'd kissed after losses at kiddie ball and visits to the dentist, only sharper, hungrier. "I already told you no," I said. "You have a job." "That's not enough." His jaw dropped. "I just need it tonight." "Why?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "It's my money, too," he snapped. "You wouldn't even have it if I hadn't helped you set up a direct deposit." "It doesn't work that way." I took a step between him and the door. "I'm paying for the roof you sleep under." He glanced toward the driveway, then at me. "Please, Grandma." "No." He yanked. I held on. The strap dug into my palm. "You're not even spending the money," he snapped. "You're just stashing it away." Something flickered across his face, shame or irritation, I couldn't tell, and the door slammed back into me. This time I let go. My purse slid out, the card clattered to the floor, and he snatched it up quickly, disappearing into the night air that smelled of damp grass and gasoline. I clutched the tea towel to my leg and listened to the car drive away. How could the boy I held in my arms not long ago choose my pain over his pride? I didn't cry. I went to the kitchen, sat down with the old red phone, and opened the small notebook I keep next to it. Dates, amounts, who said what, and when. I called the bank and froze the account. I turned on the hallway camera I'd bought just in case. Little did he know I'd spent months collecting just in case, screenshots, texts, a recording of a neighbor's doorbell, a patient police officer's card pinned under a strawberry-shaped magnet. I didn't start with the cameras or the notebooks or the detective's card pinned to the refrigerator. I started with dinner, with the way Caleb's fork scraped the plate he hadn't washed, with the way he said, "later," as if later had ever paid the bill. The beginning was quieter than the night he slammed the door in my face. It was the morning he came home in new shoes and said his boss had given him an advance, and I convinced myself I believed him. I am old. My knees tell me when it's going to rain, and my hands don't like to be closed tightly. I still go to the market on Wednesdays and to church on Sundays and can thread a needle without glasses if the light is good. After Henry died, I learned where he kept the warranty papers and what the stove sounded like. I learned the phone numbers to call. I filed them all in a blue folder in the bottom drawer and labeled it, in my best handwriting, household. For 25 years, this house had hosted babies and birthdays, and one winter, we kept plants in the bathroom. It had kept Caleb and his sister Amaya and their mother, my daughter Tessa, when the rent on their apartment skyrocketed. It kept the noise of the television at a volume I didn't like, and the smell of their popcorn, which I did. The first warning was the missing ring. Not my wedding ring, I keep that in a little velvet box, but a thin silver one Henry bought me at the county fair when we were 19 and impatient. I wore it while shelling peas. By supper time, it was gone. I looked under the sink, the drain, the napkin basket, the porch chair cushion. "It'll turn up," Caleb said, but he didn't look for it. Later, I found a ring in the dish by the sink that looked almost the same. It made my finger green. That night, the church hosted a meeting about scams that target seniors. I went because Ruth said the cookies would be good and because the flyer had a picture of a check with too many zeros. A sergeant with tired shoulders stood at the podium and said, "We are prey when we are alone, when we are polite, when we don't want to be a bother." He said to write things down, to take pictures, to get names. He said, "If someone you love is hurting you, that is still a crime, even if it hurts to call it one." I took a handout and his card, and I put both on the fridge with the strawberry magnet Amaya made in second grade. Caleb's friends changed, The boys who used to lug mulch for Mr. Alvarez next door started showing up only to lean on their car hoods and stare at their phones. One of them, the tall one with the half-closed eyes, called me Queen and smiled with all his teeth. Another wore a hoodie in August. They laughed in the driveway the way young men laugh when they're trying not to feel anything at all. "Where are you working now?" And I asked Caleb one night when he came in smelling like gasoline and sweet smoke. "Rooks," he said. "Detailing. It's under the table, but it's good." "Under the table doesn't pay taxes," I said. "It pays cash," he said. Like that settled the matter. The first time he asked for my Social Security deposit card, he did it sweet. He kissed my cheek. He said his phone bill auto-drafted too early, that he'd be paid Friday, and he'd put it right back. Friday came, and he bought a speaker the size of a bread box. I froze the card then, even though it meant I had to sit on hold and press numbers and repeat my mother's maiden name twice to a recording. I wrote the date and a few notes in the little red notebook by the phone. Not for revenge then. For memory. Tessa worked nights at the hospital cafeteria and slept in the mornings with a towel over her eyes. She didn't see the way Caleb paced at 3 a.m., talking to someone he wouldn't name. She did see the bruises on my shin when the door caught me. She saw me wince going down the porch steps and said, "Mom, we can't keep doing this." Even though she had nowhere else to go, and neither did her son. "I'll talk to him," she said. "He listens to me." "He used to," I said. Caleb didn't come home that night. At dawn, I put a dish towel with ice on my leg, called the number on the back of the card, and froze the account again. Then I called the sergeant from the meeting. He answered on the second ring. His name was Shu, and he had a voice like a man who used to coach Little League. He didn't ask me why I hadn't called earlier. He said, "Now tell me exactly what happened." And he let the silence do the work. I told him about the door and the friends and the ring. I told him about the market on Wednesdays and the church on Sundays because that felt important too. I told him how old I am because I didn't want him to think I wanted pity. I wanted help. He told me to see a doctor for my leg. He told me to take pictures of the bruises. He gave me a case number and said, "You won't be a bother," in a way that made me believe him. I wrote his name and the number in the notebook, and then because my hands were shaking, I wrote them again. When Caleb finally came home, he had the card in his pocket, already drained. He put it on the counter like something he was returning to the store. "It got declined," he said. "They froze it for some security thing." "I froze it," I said. He looked surprised, then irritated. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's mine," I said. "Because Friday isn't a savings plan." He laughed once, sharp. "You think I'm stealing from you?" "I think you're taking and not giving back." "I'll fix it," he said. "I'm fixing it." "How?" I asked. "With who?" He didn't answer. He went to his room and shut the door. The house held its breath. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pulled the blue folder labeled House Things, and I added a new tab, Safety. Under it, I put a copy of the case number, a printout of the account freeze, and the handout from the church with the sergeant's advice circled. I printed my credit report and froze that too. It took me 20 minutes to remember the password to the computer, and another 10 to reset it because I'd written it down wrong on a grocery list. I sat and breathed and thought about Henry's hands on a steering wheel in winter, knuckles white and firm. I thought about the last time we'd had to be brave together. Mr. Alvarez came by the next morning with a bag of oranges. He's 71 like me and swears citrus is better than any vitamin. He saw the way I moved when I stood up. "What did you do?" Caught a door with my leg," I said. He frowned. "You need that looked at." "I will." I hesitated. "Mr. Alvarez, Earl, have you noticed anything odd with Caleb's friends?" "Only that they don't look at you when they say hello, he said. "That's a tell. Boys who were raised right will look your way. Boys who are slipping keep their faces turned. Slipping into what?" "Something that doesn't end well," he said. "You want me to talk to him?" "No, not yet. I didn't want it to be a neighborhood problem. I wanted it to stay a family one, small enough to fix with a stern talk and a hot meal." But the oranges on the table looked like warning lights. By the time Tessa woke for work, My leg was a painting of blues and yellow-green. She cried when she saw it, a small sound like a kettle just before it boils. "I'm taking you to urgent care," she said. "I have a sergeant now," I said. "He told me to go, so I will." At the clinic, a doctor with kind eyes pressed gently and said nothing was broken, just badly bruised. He gave me a printout for documenting trauma and asked if I felt safe at home. I said yes because I wanted it to be true. On the way out, I asked the receptionist to make 3 copies of the paper, and I put one in the red notebook and one in the blue folder and one under the strawberry magnet. That night, I cooked chicken and rice and set 3 plates. Caleb didn't come home for supper. Tessa took his plate into the microwave to keep it warm. At 10, he appeared in the doorway, hungry and sullen. He ate standing up, fork clinking, eyes on his phone. "Sit," I said. "Can't," he said. "Gotta go." "Where?" Tessa asked. "Rook's," he said. "We got a late one." "Tell Rook I want you back by midnight," I said. "Tell him your grandmother said so, Otsa." He laughed again after that, not sharp this time, just tired. "That's not how it works, Nana." "It is here," I said. "My roof, my rules." He looked at me, really looked, for the first time in weeks. "You frozen everything?" "Yes." His jaw worked. "I'll get it back." "You can get back by midnight," I said. He didn't. At 2 in the morning, the front camera I'd set up blinked a gentle blue I could see from my chair. I watched a figure in a hoodie walk up to the porch and jiggle the handle, then walk away. I wrote the time in the notebook. The next day, the ring from the county fair was truly gone, fake twin and all. I went to the bank and sat with a man my age named Nolan, who wore a tie with little anchors on it. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "we've been seeing a lot of family difficulties lately. Let's make sure your accounts are as tight as you want them." He helped me set up alerts for anything over $50. He printed forms for a trust and slid them across the desk. "No pressure," he said. "But if you want the house to be safe from a bad decision made under pressure, this is a way." "What if the pressure is from your own blood?" I asked. "Especially then," he said. I took the forms home. That night, Caleb knocked on my door. Not the front door, my bedroom door. "Nana," he said. His voice was smaller than his shoulders. "Can I come in?" I opened it. He stood with his hands in his pockets like a boy who had brought home a C on a test. "I messed up," he said. "I know," I said. "It's not like you think," he said. "It's just Rook fronted me some stuff. I owe him—" "What kind of stuff?" "Parts," he said quickly. "Tools." He looked at my leg and flinched. "I didn't mean to do that." "You did it," I said. "Meaning doesn't pay the light bill." He looked like he might cry, then swallowed it. "I'll fix it," he said again. The third time it sounded like a prayer he didn't believe in. "How?" I asked. He didn't answer. He said goodnight, and I let him walk away because I didn't trust my voice to hold the steady line it needed to. The trust papers sat on my kitchen table like a dare. I took them to a lawyer named Whitaker who had hair the color of steel and glasses that hung on a chain. She spoke in clean sentences that felt like solid ground. "You'll be the trustee," she said. "You keep control. The beneficiaries can be your grandchildren. The house can't be sold without your consent. And if someone tries to force me," I asked. "Then they won't succeed," she said, "because it won't be yours to give away impulsively. It will be in a container that requires your deliberate choice." She tapped the paper. "We build containers so your future self can be safe from your frightened present." I signed. My hand shook, so I signed slower. I left the office with a folder and the sense that I'd done something hard and necessary. In the parking lot, the tall friend with the half-closed eyes watched me from a distance and then melted away when he saw me see him. I wrote the time and place in the notebook and circled it twice. I thought filing the trust would be the turning point. It wasn't. The turning point was Sunday dinner the week after, when Daniel, my son, showed up uninvited with a man in a navy blazer who introduced himself as an advisor. Daniel hasn't been to my table in 3 years. He is 50, handsome like his father was, and he smiles with the side of his mouth when he lies. He handed me flowers and said, "Ma," like we'd seen each other yesterday. He hugged Tessa quickly, clapped Caleb's shoulder like he knew where it had been, and didn't care. He took the end seat without asking. The man in the blazer sat beside him and laid a leather folder on the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Opportunity," Daniel said. "I'm making rounds, helping folks get their equity working. You sitting on a gold mine and living like coal." "This is my home," I said. "Your home can work for you," the advisor said smoothly. "Reverse mortgage, no payments, just cash flow. You could help your grandkids, pay off some bills, maybe take a cruise." "Bills?" I asked. My voice went small to match his sales pitch. "What bills?" He glanced at Daniel. Daniel smiled with that one side of his mouth. "You've got some medical, Ma. And there's the card, the one with the 2,000. I can help clean that up." "I froze that card," I said. He blinked. "Since when?" "Since it went missing," I said. The advisor cleared his throat and opened his folder. "We can look past small balances," he said. "You sign here, here, and here, and the bank wires funds. It's a blessing for folks on fixed income." Tessa wiped her hands on a dish towel and stood taller. "Mom doesn't need a cruise," she said. "She needs peace." "Peace costs money," Daniel said lightly. "Come on, Tess. Don't be dramatic." He turned to me. "Ma, look at me. I've got contacts. I know how to do this. I can make sure you're taken care of." "You mean you can make sure you're taken care of?" I said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You always assume the worst." Caleb shifted in his chair, eyes moving between our faces like a spectator at a match he had bet on. The advisor kept pointing at places for me to sign that I did not touch. My hands stayed in my lap. I kept my voice even. "Leave the papers," I said finally. "I'll review them with someone." Daniel's jaw flexed, the same muscle that jumped in Caleb. "You don't trust me." "I'll always be your mother," I said. "That's not the same as a client." He stood up too fast, chair scraping the floor. "You want to live like this forever?" He gestured at the kitchen, the old stove, the stacked coupons. "Working yourself to the bone to keep lights on for people who don't appreciate it?" "Do you?" I asked. "Appreciate it?" He didn't answer. He and the advisor left without the flowers. The screen door clicked once like a tongue. Caleb stared at his plate. "I didn't know he was coming," he said, but the way he didn't meet my eyes told me he knew something. That night, the porch camera caught Daniel and Caleb on the steps, whispering. Daniel's hand cut the air, sharp, then settled on Caleb's shoulder like a weight. I watched on my phone from my chair, the house dark except for that small blue glow. I felt the shape of the revenge I would take form in my chest, not fire or fury, but a cold, arranging calm. If my son wanted to turn my life into numbers, I would make the numbers count. The next day, I went to see Sergeant Shu at the precinct. He sat in a small office with a calendar of dogs on the wall and listened. I told him about Daniel, about the advisor. I showed him the bruise on my leg, now the color of a bad plum. I gave him a list of dates and times and an envelope I had labeled with today's date and sealed without money inside. I wrote CASH in my largest letters on the outside. He read the word and looked up. "What's this for?" he asked. "A test," I said. "If it goes missing, it will go missing into a camera and maybe a pocket we can follow." He didn't tell me not to. He told me to be careful. He said, "You're not alone," and gave me his direct number. He also gave me a pamphlet about protective orders. I read it, then folded it carefully and put it in my purse. I asked Mr. Alvarez to help me move the good jewelry to his safe for a while. He didn't ask why. He put on his jacket and said, "Walk with me." We went the long way around the block. "You know," he said, "my brother and I didn't talk for 10 years. Couldn't say who was right at the start, ended with me holding his hand in a hospital. Blood is complicated." "I'm not trying to cut him off," I said. "No," he said. "You're trying to keep yourself from bleeding out." The envelope sat on the hall table in plain sight. I made sure to mention to Tessa that I needed to take cash to pay Mrs. Payne for the quilt she repaired. "I'm going to lie down," I said, voice loud enough for Caleb to hear through his open door. I left my own door cracked and turned the volume up on a radio show so the house sounded unguarded. It took 23 minutes for the envelope to disappear. I saw a shadow at the hall table. Quick, a hand, a pocket. The camera blinked. I waited 10 more minutes and then called Shu. "Stay put," he said. "Don't confront." "I won't," I said, though every part of me wanted to march down the hallway and demand names and reasons like a teacher with a ruler. At dusk, Caleb left with the tall friend in the hoodie and the car that always smelled like gasoline. I waited 5 more minutes and then drove to the church to drop off canned goods, so Tessa would believe I'd been busy, if she asked. When I came home, Shu's car was parked at the corner, quiet. He didn't wave. He sat and watched. 2 hours later, a message blinked on my phone from a number I didn't know with a map pin that slid across town to a storage unit near the tire place. I put on my coat and went outside and waved to Shu, then went back in because that was his job now, not mine. They didn't arrest anyone that night. They wanted a pattern, not a moment. Shu told me as much the next day. "If this is just a dumb mistake," he said, "we want a chance for him to correct. If it's bigger, we'll need to see it." "It's bigger?" I said softly. "How do you know?" "Because Daniel doesn't come around for free," I said. The second twist arrived by mail. A bill for a phone I never owned from a company I don't use, sent to my address with my name. I took it to Nolan at the bank, and he sighed in a way that meant his day had more of this than he could carry. "Identity theft," he said. "Happening all over? We'll help you file the affidavit." He looked at the account number and his eyebrows lifted. This line was opened in person at a kiosk. Whoever did this had your number and your birthday and your answers to at least 2 questions. "Who would know what street Henry grew up on besides me?" I asked. "Someone who heard you tell that story 100 times, Nolan said gently. I drove home and sat in my quiet car in the driveway with my hands on the wheel. In the porch camera, I saw my reflection only. No boys, no men in blazers, no daughter with a towel over her eyes. My house looked like mine again in the small screen. Inside, I pulled the strawberry magnet aside and stuck the fake phone bill under it next to the sergeant's card like a flag in enemy ground. That night, I made stew, the house filled with the smell of slow onions and beef. Caleb came in early. He washed his hands without being asked. He sat. He ate. He looked at me after his second bowl like a boy asking for a third cookie. "Nana," he said, "I got a chance." "What kind?" "Rook knows a guy," he said. "I can get on at the shop official, not under the table. He said he'll talk to the man if I bring him 300 to square up what I owe." "Square up what?" I asked. He looked at his bowl. "Parts," he said again. "How much do you really owe, Caleb?" He didn't answer. He stood and took his bowl to the sink. He washed it, he dried it, he put it away in the wrong cabinet and didn't notice. He turned back. "I know I messed up," he said. "I'll fix it." "Do it without my card?" I said. He nodded, eyes bright, then dulled. He left. The porch camera logged him at 7:12 p.m. At 7:58 p.m., Daniel knocked on my door like a man who owned a key. I opened it because locking my own son out felt like a line I wasn't ready to cross. He stepped in without waiting to be asked. "You got mail?" he said, and held up a bill that matched the one under the strawberry magnet. "How did you get my mail?" I asked. He smiled with one side of his mouth. "Tess left it in her car," he said. "I saw it when I brought her lunch." "She doesn't work lunch," I said. He didn't blink. "I'm just trying to help," he said. "Let me take this off your hands. I know a guy at the company. We'll make it go away." "I already filed the affidavit," I said. "With Nolan." His mouth tightened. "You don't trust me?" he repeated. "I don't trust what you want from me," I said. "What do I want, Ma?" he asked softly. "To be king of something," I said, "even if that something is my kitchen." He laughed, a small, mean sound that didn't match the man I remembered teaching to ride a bike on the hill behind the school. "You always were dramatic," he said. He looked past me down the hallway. "Caleb around?" "No." "Tell him I can help," Daniel said. "Tell him to pick up when I call." "Are you the help he needs?" I asked. "Or the pressure?" He kissed the air near my cheek and left. The camera caught him pausing on the porch to readjust his jacket. Shu texted me a minute later. "Did he show you anything? Say anything specific?" I texted back. "He showed me who he still is." 2 days later, the envelope trick paid off. Shu called mid-afternoon. "We have footage from the storage unit," he said. "Your grandson went in with a bag. 30 minutes later, your son went in. 15 after that, a third male. Tall, hood. We're going to pull their rental records. What do you need from me?" "Keep doing what you're doing, Saul," he said. Keep writing. Keep breathing." He paused. "Do you want a protective order today?" I thought about the stew, the way Caleb washed his bowl, the way he put it in the wrong cabinet and didn't notice. I thought about the bruise still yellowed on my leg. "Not today," I said. "Not yet." That night, I called a meeting at my own table. Tessa sat with her towel-flattened hair, eyes ringed with fatigue. Mr. Alvarez came too because I asked him to, because I needed a man Caleb would look at. Caleb sat, bounced his knee. Daniel didn't come, though I didn't invite him. "I'm going to say something hard and you're going to listen," I said. "If you leave, you can't come back tonight." I looked at Caleb. "I love you. I love you enough to draw lines you'll hate." "Nana, let me finish," I said. "My accounts are locked. The house is in a trust. If anything else goes missing, I call Sergeant Shu, and I don't stand in the doorway to keep you from leaving." I let the door close and the law do what it is meant to do. Caleb's jaw jumped. "You'd call the cops on me?" "I already did," I said. He looked at Mr. Alvarez. "Yeah, you hear this?" Mr. Alvarez didn't avert his gaze. "I hear a woman protecting her home," he said. "I hear a boy with a chance to stand up and take his hands off what isn't his." Caleb looked at Tessa. "Mom?" Tessa's voice shook. "I can't lose you," she said. "But I can't lose her either. So you will not take from her again." "What am I supposed to do?" he asked. "Get the job that doesn't ask for cash at midnight," I said. "Or go to the program at the community center. They place boys your age in apprenticeships. It is not glamorous, but it is honest." He looked 12 in that moment, then he looked 20 again. "Rook isn't your family," I said. "He just uses the word." He stood up. I'm going out," he said. "Not with my keys," I said. I held my hand out. After a long beat, he dropped the spare set into my palm. He left on foot, shoulders high, like someone carrying something heavier than his pride. A week of quiet isn't peace. It's just the breath you take before you dive again. Caleb started coming home by 10. He started sleeping. He started eating. He asked me to show him how I balanced the budget. He wrote numbers down and frowned at them like they were a language he could learn if he tried hard enough. I let my hope grow a little, like a green thing in a jar on a windowsill. Then the storage unit burned. The call came at 3 a.m. Shu again. "There was a fire," he said. "No one hurt, but we lost what was inside. We had a camera on it. Someone noticed." This is bigger than a grandson with sticky fingers. Bigger meant money that came from other houses, too. It meant my phone bill wasn't the only one. It meant the man in the navy blazer. It meant Daniel. The report on the fire said faulty wiring. The footage from a gas station down the road said a different story. The hooded boy buying lighter fluid at 2:17 a.m., and a sedan like Daniel's turning into the facility at 2:43. "They just erased what we were collecting," I said. "Not erased," Shu said. They confirmed. 2 days later, the major twist arrived wearing Daniel's mouth. He came at noon with a white paper bag that smelled like fried chicken and stood on my porch like a man delivering good news. "I got him a job," he said before I could say hello. "Real one. My buddy at the wholesaler owes me. Caleb can start Monday, loading, unloading, moving. Cash first 2 weeks, then on the books. He shows up, he's in." I looked at him. "Why?" Because he's my son, Daniel said. And for a split second, something that might have been love crossed his face like the shadow of a cloud. Then it was gone. And because I need him to keep his mouth shut, he added, so low I almost thought I imagined it. He smiled with the side of his mouth. Kidding, he said louder. Ma, you gotta learn to take a joke. Men our age learn to tell the truth sideways. I didn't laugh. Tell him to be here at 7 Monday, I said. When the door closed, I stood with my hand on it and breathed until my heart slowed. Caleb took the job. He woke at 6 and drank coffee and came home tired and sore and a little proud. He put his first envelope on the table Friday and said, rent. And I pressed his hand and told him to keep half for shoes that didn't come from a friend. Week 2, he came home with a bruise on his cheekbone and an envelope that was too thin. What happened? I asked. Shorted hours, he said. He wouldn't look at me. Who hit you? He touched his face as if surprised by it. A door, he said. Don't start. He went to his room and shut the door gently, which somehow hurt more than a slam. I drove to the wholesaler the next day and asked for the manager. A man with a shaved head in his 60s came out. I'm Miss Carter, I said. My grandson works here. He frowned. No minors on the floor, he said automatically. He's 20, I said. Tall, tight jaw, looks older when he's tired. Oh, the kid Daniel sent, he said. He's on the list. He doesn't work for me. Who does he work for? Temp agency, he said. Cash until paperwork clears. Nothing to do with me. He paused. Why? Because his hours don't match his pay, I said. And because his face matches a fist. The man's eyes softened. You want my advice? He said. Get him out of the temp circle. They eat boys like that. Who put him in it? He looked at me the way people look at one another when they both know the answer and are considering whether to say it out loud. You didn't hear it from me, he said finally. But if Daniel's involved, your boy is being used to settle something he didn't make. I went home and sat at my table and put the blue folder and the red notebook side by side. I made 2 lists, what I know and what I can prove. Under no, I wrote, Daniel owes someone. Rook is not just a car wash. Caleb is scared. Under prove, I wrote the bruise, the missing envelope, the phone bill, the storage unit, the fire, the camera times. Then I wrote in large letters across the bottom, move first. On Monday, I went to Ms. Whitaker and asked her to add a clause to the trust about guardianship. If anyone attempts to claim I am not of sound mind without my choosing, here are the doctors who can evaluate me, I said. She nodded and wrote. I called my doctor and asked him to do a baseline cognitive test. He did, and he smiled when I remembered all 5 words after 10 minutes. Sharp as a tack, he said, and signed a paper that said so. Tuesday, I went to the bank and opened a small account in only my name at a credit union across town. I moved my deposit there. I left the old card active with a $20 balance and an alert set for if it moved. I bought an AirTag and hid it inside a coin purse my mother used to carry, the one with the kiss clasp. I put the coin purse in my top drawer and I left the drawer open half an inch. Wednesday, I invited Daniel to supper. He came late, with Caleb in tow, and a girl I didn't know who kept her eyes down and her mouth closed. Rook's car idled in the driveway with the hood pulled up like a wolf with its mouth open. Tessa set plates and I poured sweet tea, and for a few minutes it looked like family. Hands passing bread, someone laughing at something the pastor said last week. Then Daniel reached toward the hallway like a man smelling smoke. You still got that little stash, Ma? He asked casually. You always did like to squirrel away. I have what I need, I said. My heart pounded. In my drawer, tucked in the coin purse, the AirTag waited. After supper, while Tessa and I washed dishes and the girl helped dry even though no one asked her to, I heard Caleb's door. I heard Daniel's footstep, the one that falls slightly heavier on the right because he broke that ankle at 16. I dried my hands slowly and counted to 60. I walked down the hall and saw my bedroom door cracked the way I had left it, and the top drawer open 2 inches instead of 1. I cleared my throat. "Can I help you find something?" Daniel didn't flinch. He smiled with that one side of his mouth. "Just looking for a pen?" he said. "In my socks?" He lifted his hands. "Just playing, Ma," he said. "Don't be so serious." The girl left with him, arm pulled by the elbow, eyes still down. Caleb lingered on the porch. "Nana?" he said. "I didn't. I know which footstep is yours," I said gently. "And which is his." The AirTag pinged at 10:12 p.m. on a warehouse road by the river. Shu's text followed 2 minutes later. "Got it. Stay home. Doors locked." I didn't sleep. I sat in Henry's recliner and watched the porch camera glow its small blue eye. At 3 a.m., a car rolled slow, lights off, then moved on. At 4, a cat sauntered by and looked into the lens like it knew a secret. The arrests came on Friday. They took Rook first for the stolen catalytic converters stacked in his garage like cordwood. They took the tall boy with the hood for breaking and entering. They took Daniel in a parking lot with 2 phones and 3 names in his wallet. They took Caleb at work, gentle, with a hand on his elbow like he might fall if they didn't steady him. Shu called me before the news did. "We'll push for diversion for Caleb," he said. "First offense, young, cooperating. But I need you to tell the DA about the door." "I will," I said. My voice was steady. "What about Daniel?" "Your son has patterns," he said. "He'll make his choices. The judge will make his courtroom smell like paper and old coffee. When I took the stand, my leg had healed, but I wore the skirt from the day of the bruise anyway because I needed to remember." The lawyer asked gentle questions. The defense tried to be gentler. "Mrs. Carter," they said, "do you love your grandson?" "Yes," I said. "Enough to make him face consequences." "Do you want him in jail?" "No," I said. "I want him to stop hurting me, and I want him to be the man I know he can be." I looked at Caleb when I said it. He looked at his hands. Daniel stared straight ahead like the past wasn't a weight around his throat. The judge was a woman with silver hair. She ordered rehab for Caleb, restitution, community service at the church food pantry, counseling for financial literacy. She ordered jail time for Daniel, less than I wanted and more than he expected. She issued a no-contact order for Rook. She told me I was brave in that careful voice judges use when they are trying not to be human. Afterwards, in the hallway, Caleb looked at me with the face of the boy who cried with croup and the teen who slept through his alarm. "Nana," he said. He didn't finish the sentence. I hugged him, quick, because boundaries still mattered. I put my hand on his cheek the way my mother used to put hers on mine. "You get this one," I said. "Use it." At home, the house sounded like itself again. The clock ticked without worry. The refrigerator hummed like it was humming just for me. I made coffee for Mr. Alvarez and me, and we sat on the porch and watched workers fix the crack in the sidewalk that had bothered him for 2 summers. "You did right," he said. "I did what I had to," I said. "Same thing," he said. "The revenge I took is not the kind that makes headlines. I didn't key a car or pour sugar in a gas tank. I used folders and forms and cameras and the quiet patience of a woman who knows how to mend a tear from the inside so the stitch doesn't show. I pressed charges. I showed up. I told the truth even when my voice shook. I moved my money like it was chess, not checkers. I told Daniel no in every language I had, then let a gavel translate it for me. 3 months later, Caleb finished rehab. He came to the house with a counselor from the program, a woman with a braid and a clipboard who watched our faces like a weather report. He looked thinner and older and so much like Henry. At 20, I had to sit down. He cried when he said he was sorry, but not the way boys cry to get something. He cried the way men cry when they have lost and want to stop losing. "Can I come home?" like he asked. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe not for a while. We can meet at the church. You can come for Sunday dinner with your mother. You can help Mr. Alvarez with his fence. But my house is a boundary now." He nodded. "I know," he said. "I'm learning about boundaries. He smiled a little. Turns out I was bad at them. Most of us are, I said. We learn late. I started a group at the church on Tuesdays, women with folders and bruises and a fear of being a bother. We bring cookies and we bring copies. We practice saying no in the mirror. We write down names and times. We learn about air tags and truss and how to spin a story into a record. The first night, I told them my grandson slammed a door on my leg, and I didn't call that a crime until a man with tired shoulders told me I could. I told them my son smiled when he lied, and a judge said that mattered less than the facts. We laughed at nothing funny and cried at nothing sad and left a little taller. Sometimes when it rains and my knees tell me about it, I sit with the red notebook and flip back to the first page with Shu's name written twice. I touch the place where my pen pressed too hard. I think about Henry driving in the snow, both of us quiet, trusting the tires. I think about the door and the bruise and the envelope with no cash. I think about my hands, the same hands that knead dough and thread needles and hold a phone steady when it's time to dial. People think revenge is fire. Mine was ice, slow and clear. I didn't blow up their lives. I let them see themselves in the lit room of a courtroom and choose. I made sure the light stayed on long enough that they couldn't pretend they didn't know. Last week, I took Amaya to buy school shoes. She picked blue ones with laces that glowed a little under the store lights. We ate sandwiches in the parking lot, and she asked me if Caleb was better. He's working on it, I said. So am I. How do you forgive? She asked, lacing and unlacing. You don't start there, I said. You start with the truth. Forgiving without the truth is just pretending. She nodded like she'd tuck that away for later. She has a notebook now, too. I bought it for her. Red, like mine. She writes poems in it. She writes the names of songs she likes and the times they remind her of. She wrote once the word boundary and then looked it up to be sure. She showed me the definition. I told her it was good, but mine is better, the place where I keep myself. Sometimes late, the porch camera still blinks at a cat or a moth. Sometimes I wake and check it and then laugh at myself for checking. The bruise faded and the door still opens. On my table, the blue folder sits next to a vase of lilies. On the fridge, the strawberry magnet holds a new card now, from a young officer who came to our group and said his mother lives alone and he worries. I told him to tell her to come Tuesdays. He said he would. If you ask me whether I would do it differently, call sooner, shout louder, forgive slower, I don't know. I know only this. I am 71 and not helpless. I am a woman with a house and a ledger and a spine. I am a mother who loves a son who will have to start loving himself somewhere far from my kitchen. I am a grandmother who will hug a boy at the church and hand him a roll to butter and say, "Tell me what you learned today." How could my own grandson do this to me? Because he is young and scared and listened to a man who promised shortcuts? How could my own son? Because he is old enough to know better and didn't? How could I? Because I had to. Because little did they know I was preparing for that day months before it came. Because the revenge I wanted most was to keep my life mine. Now, when the market is open on Wednesdays, I buy oranges. I bring one to Mr. Alvarez and one to Ruth, and I keep one for myself. I peel it slow on the porch, the skin coming off in one spiral, my hands steady. If you want to understand how it all happened, you'd have to sit with me while the peel drops in a bright coil at my feet, while the camera blinks, while the house hums, while I take the first sweet bite and let it sit on my tongue before I swallow. On Sunday, Caleb comes for dinner. He brings a pie he bought and tries to pass it off as his own. I let him. He asks if he can fix the loose hinge on the back door. I tell him he can, and I hand him Henry's screwdriver. He works. He wipes his hands on a rag. He looks at me. "Thank you," he says, and he means for more than the pie and the tool. "You're welcome," I say, and I mean for more than the hinge. After he leaves, I stand in the kitchen and run my fingers along the smooth swing of the door. It opens and closes without catching. The camera light is steady. The notebook is fat with pages. The house breathes. So do I.
Migrant grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.